Today's appointment was not supposed to be a color correction, but this is where we are. When this client sat down, we had initially had her booked for just a simple color down service, where I would very likely use a permanent color or a demi-permanent color to just solidly cover her over. The plan was just to go over her entire color with one solid reddish auburn color that was going to be half a level darker than her current color. But then I looked through this hair and I saw black patches all over the place. And her hair was way too red for us to be doing what she originally imagined for her hair. Her hair is so red. It's like a red wine color. And I'm going to show you pictures of what she sent to me. And this was her initial color that she had initially wanted. It's more of a cowboy copper is what I would call it. This is really trending in this year and last year. And this is what she wanted when she first saw her stylist that ended up doing what she currently has to her hair. And then she ended up seeing me for this color correction. So this pretty much ended up being a service where I said to her, we're going to do our best to get you in a new direction towards what you want, but we're not going to have exactly what you want at the end of the day here. But we're going to have something better than what we currently have. So she had gotten her hair color corrected by a stylist at another salon and, wasn't very happy with it. She didn't seem to realize that there were black splotches in her hair, but that was like the first thing I noticed when I started looking through her hair. And my first thought was, I don't know if we can even tackle these things today or if it just comes down to us disguising and blending them in. So I thought, my first thought is we're going to handle these hot roots and get her to a more neutral, natural looking auburny red, because the red that's in here right now is so crazy red that this is probably the biggest problem that we had to deal with today, more so than the black splotches in her hair. When you have a gold color that is on the same level as what you're currently starting with and you don't want to bleach out her hair entirely, you have to use neutralizing colors. So what I used today was 600 to put in some brown in her color, 6-31, which is green and blue, and then 663, which is chocolate and green. And all of those colors are going to come together to deepen her root, add some browniness to it, and have some green in there as well to fight these over-the-top red tones. Now what you're seeing on the side here is this big black patch that I didn't notice at first because it was in the very front of her hair on some of those pieces, so I decided to tackle that after her roots were on. Her roots need to sit for about 45 minutes, so I figured this was the perfect time to do this big black patch on either side of the hair, and I'm not even going to bother with the ones that are closer up to the root that you guys saw in the beginning of the video. So what I did here was I just took some foils and Wella Blonderplex and 20 volume and just tackled the biggest sections of this that I could find, and I didn't go overlapping any of the previous blonde that she had. And I'm just going to tell you guys really quickly what she'd had before her initial appointment. She had been getting her grays covered with a brown color, and she had some previous balayaging. She went to a stylist who I believe was on the newer side to hair, and she, I think, just bit off more than she could chew. And so she bleached the brown color, and I think maybe the application wasn't super clean and didn't lift very high, because then when she put over this super red color, which was a fill, to make her this more cowboy copper color, I think what ended up happening is because there's so much pigment in this red color, it absorbed into the areas that either didn't lift enough or weren't even covered by the lightener in the first place, and they went black. So I think it's just double pigmenting this super aggressive color, and I think this is kind of where the color went wrong, is that she used a very, very deep red for her fill instead of using an orange. I will very rarely use a deep red for a fill. I only will if I'm going for, like, really honestly black hair, because red really shines through the hair no matter what you put on it, but orange fills it in a way that can still be disguised at like a level 5, 6. So our challenge today is to keep her at like a level 5.5, 6, while still neutralizing the red as much as we can without going too overboard and making her a dull color. We still want some vibrancy, and we need to balance and equalize out those ends. So after we get rid of those black patches and we rinse out her root color, we're able to move on to our next step, which is so weird. You guys aren't going to believe me when I say this, is we're going to put red in her hair. I just told you 2 seconds ago, her hair's too red, but that's the top half of it. The ends of it are orange and gold and super porous. So what's going to happen when I put green on top of those ends is they're going to go muddy. They're going to look like Shrek's butthole. It's going to be so gross. And so what I need to do is make these ends match the roots. So what I decided to do here was, also, here's a quick little visual of the roots. Even though I had tons of green in that formula, her roots do not look green at all. They're a beautiful red color. They're a deeper, more neutral red than the fire engine aerial red that we had going on before with the hot root. So I'm using Schwarzkopf Vibrance 6-78, which is a copper red. This is so red, but it has that copper undertone to it too. I didn't want to put in a -88. I feel like sometimes reds even still look hollow. I find orange has that real richness that we want to find in a lot of our rich brunettes, our rich auburns. Orange is the secret ingredient to creating a vibrant color, not necessarily just straight red pigment. But I needed to add red into these ends here because when I put on my next formula, it's also going to have a lot of green to help neutralize and balance out some of that red and bring it more towards the neutral side of the spectrum. And if it goes over those ends and they're not red, that green is going to touch the orange and yellow, and it's going to make such a nasty color, and she's going to end up with worse looking hair than she came in with. So sometimes if you're trying to do as minimal bleach as possible with a color correction, you just have to accept the worst color there is in the hair and go with it and kind of bring everything down to that level and then neutralize from there. The hard thing about today is choosing how much color to put in each formula when you're choosing these very forest green tones, these emerald tones, because you can very easily tip the scales in the wrong direction. So I said to my client, I'm just putting a tiny bit of green in our formula when it comes to the straight green kickers, because I didn't want to have her leaving with mossy, hollow looking hair. It's better to leave with something too red than to be too green, in my opinion. Now let's be so fair to the stylist who initially did her hair. She's very likely a new stylist from what I saw with her text messages back and forth. And her initial plan seems like she just had something going and the hair didn't react the way she wanted it to, or maybe she wasn't able to follow through with her initial plan. And choosing something with this much red does make it more difficult than you think, because reds have their own kind of like science and chemistry to them. Reds are so particular and persnickety. And if you are a hairstylist and you're looking to specialize in something that no one specializes in, choose reds. That is something that you will have a whole niche clientele for. Let's talk about my formula here for a moment. What I'm glazing over the rest of it with, and by the way, I rinsed out that previous fill color because I don't want it getting in the way of this one. I used 7.0 and 6.0 for that brownie base. And then I used 663, so it has a chocolate with some green. It's like a mattified chocolate. And then I also put in 1 gram of 0-33. I probably could have used a little more, but I didn't want to tip the scales again in the wrong direction. And I used 6 volume lotion just to have it really sink in there without doing any kind of lift or anything crazy, because we're just seeing how much we can balance out the hair today, and that at our next appointment, we're going to see what the hair wants to drop between now and in 4 weeks, and we're going to fill in those holes and the gaps in her hair with whatever color is needed. Because again, we're not expecting to get exactly where we wanted to today. All we're aiming for is color correction, not perfection. Because again, you can't expect something perfect from a very deeply flawed canvas in the first place. She had porosity issues. She had tons of banding, hot roots, and splotches all over the place. So if we can minimize that and balance her out as much as possible in the limited time we have today, because again, this was supposed to be one solid color I was just going to slap onto her hair. But when I saw it in real life, I went, nah, we have multiple formulas here that we got to work with. And we might even have to do some bleaching, which isn't ideal, but had to be done. So in about 3 hours, we did this entire service. And I let this sit for the full 20 minutes and then I rinsed her out. And here's what she had. Let's do our 2 stars and a wish. My first star is we didn't go overboard with the green. Again, so easily done. I think we ended up with a really beautiful, very red-based cowboy copper. Her balayage is coming through in a really nice way, and nothing looks ashy or dull. However, it could look a little richer, in my personal opinion. I'm also glad that I made time to deal with the black chunks, because if you look at these side pieces now, they blend a lot better. Are they perfect? No, but they are a lot more disguised and work with the dimension of her hair, and it doesn't just look like a big blotch of black. And the wish. I wish if I had time, which I understand I did not, I would have done a quick glaze of 6-77 all over to add some of that like rich vibrancy back to the hair. And we discussed that next time. That's what we're going to do. What would you guys have done if this was in your chair? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.